This is rye being grown for craft whiskey. I'm in Hickory Corners at a field day, and now we're talking about growing rye. Sometimes rye will fall over in a lot of wind and rain.
Bit, right? Rye has a tendency to do that, and especially if you put too much nitrogen fertilizer on it and then you get 3 inches of rain with wind. I don't think we had 3 inches. If you get rain, a lot of rain with wind, it falls over, and then it kind of tries to stand back up and that falls over. But you can really see the segregation between varieties and how some of the taller ones tend to fall over, get a more leggy. Some of the shorter ones are more consistent and so forth. And so it's really important for growing rye to know what you're up against and what the characteristics of the variety are, because there's a lot of variation out there for sure. In the southwest part of the state, and has quite a bit of experience in growing rye, selling seed, including some unique varieties of interest for the distilling world. So I'm going to turn it over to you to share your experiences and goods and bads of rye.
Thank you, Brooke. Appreciate being here. Yeah, on the rye side, first of all, I'll say I lean on Brooke a lot. You know, I really appreciate the variety trials here, because otherwise I'd be a little bit lost in what do you do. And, so I grow variety of small grains, barley, wheat, rye. I do sell seed, and I'm a custom cleaner. I was telling them the other day about, and this goes back to that variety trials. It's interesting how, as a custom cleaner, and most of the custom cleans cover crop rye. It's nothing, being destined for a distillery or otherwise, but you really do pick out how much variation there can be in rye, and that's, yield environment, growing conditions, and as well as variety. So I've grown rye off and on throughout the years, not as consistently as wheat or barley. Like rye, like Brooke was saying, I've got rye that's going down right now. Growing Rosen there for Mammoth Distilling there. Honest, for the dry land, sandy loam, drouthy type grounds, Marshall grounds we're growing in it. 30 to 40 bushels is kind of per acre is what we're expecting. And 25. If it's below 25, I'd be surprised. It's pretty consistent. You're always going to get 25. You're aiming for 30 to 40 bushel per acre. So it's not. This isn't big bushels. And a lot of that, I think, has to do with the kind of ground we're putting it on. We're putting it on the toughest acres that we have.
100 bushels per acre with some of the hybrid rye that it's KWS. That's the company that's releasing these hybrid rye, and it's hard to see, but like behind you, Carl, there's a plot, the second one in back there, that's much more even. It's standing upright, and those hybrid rye tend to do that. They're shorter. They almost look a little bit more like tall wheat than rye in a way, and they yield a lot more. They're a lot easier to harvest, but in some ways they have a lot less character. They have less story, less flavor to some extent from some of our research, and so think about the wide range of rye that's possible and the trade-offs you get from those. I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, I haven't grown any hybrid rye. I mean, I'd like to, but then it goes back to market. Like, on the seed production side, I'm just going where the demand was, or I got my one local distiller, Iron Shoe, that buys from me. I've only had experiences with Danko and Rosen, and pretty limited experience there. So I really couldn't speak to varietal preferences. I think you look out here, I mean, there is definitely a lot of differences between varieties, from standability. I think quality is probably the biggest difference. And I was saying to him, and once again, most of the grain I clean is cover crop. Not all of it. I work with Grainer Farms, and they do I don't know what varieties. I know they've done Danko. I can't think of what else.
We got Danko.
Is it just Danko? Okay. Well, and all I'm going to say is, as a custom cleaner and as a seed processor, it is interesting to see, at the end of the day, what I am seeing is grain quality. And I think that's where, from a variety standpoint, there's a ton of impact, because you're going to see, wow, this is good, plump, heavy test weight, to something that's pretty rough, pretty dirty, a lot of issues there. Tucker, he'll be the man to talk to. He's the Danko specialist, so.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. So we've only grown Danko, so I can't really compare it to anything else, but we're also in Southwest Michigan, and it grows really well for us. It's majority of it's organic, so we're shooting around that 30 to 35 bushel range for a yield goal. And we don't really do much for fertility. We typically fertilize our corn year, and then soybeans, and then the rye year. We don't spread any fertilizer for that rye year, and it does around 30 to 35 bushels typically. And we love it by us. So the question was about just the history of Danko and just kind of general characteristics of it. All I know is that it grows really well agronomically by us, and we sell to a lot of distilleries in the state, and they seem to really enjoy it as well. So it's been a really, and it yields well enough that we want to keep it around, and our customers like it, so that's just what we've stuck with.
And shorter, don't lodge as much.
Yeah, it doesn't lodge very much, and like I said, we're not doing any synthetic nitrogen or anything like that.
It grew kind of well, but our yields were really low. We talked a lot with obviously these guys at MSU, read a lot from other farm distilleries. There's a great one far north in Minnesota. They have a couple thousand acres, and they do a lot of really good research on it. But yeah, so we kind of landed on growing that AC Hazlet that James was just talking about. Basically for all those reasons, to us, the main focus is the flavor profile of that whiskey. Yield is great and all that, we care about that, but we really, the end result, that whiskey in the glass is what we're looking for. So we were looking for those characteristics that, really bring that out. So that's kind of why we chose AC Hazlet, as well as we've had so much hard time growing solid stuff on our farm. So we only had a little over 80 acres that we farm. Last year we did yield about 38 bushels per acre, which is pretty darn good. It was a good year. The year before that, I think it was like 20, 28, 29 or something like that. So we're pretty up and down. But definitely the how it grows and the yields have definitely gone up every time. We don't know exactly what they were doing before we took over this farm, but they weren't putting much back into it. So it has been trying to regenerate all those all the crops, make sure we get as much yield as possible. And flavor profile, we haven't really made much of a difference yet. And of course, when we make a barrel of whiskey, we're tasting it every year, but it's not even really ready for 4 to 6 years. So we really don't have quite that data yet.
My name is Chuck. You're watching Farmers Discuss Growing Rye for Craft Whiskey on Around Van Buren. Like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.